Hello friends, today I will tell you about a film in the genre of science fiction thriller called Elizabeth Harvest. The subtitles were made by Dima Torzok. The film is complex, but it is also very interesting and holds a great deal of intrigue. Science fiction, or it's not science fiction anymore. Looking at the development of science, you begin to understand that anything is possible in our world, and director Sebastian Guterres suggests reflecting on this. A luxury car drives along a mountain road. Inside are a couple, a young beauty in a wedding dress, and an elderly man. The girl is happy because she stole his heart, and he stole her from all troubles into his secret world. Ahead is a house located in a beautiful place, mountains, trees, and blue sky. They are greeted by the housekeeper Claire and a young man whom the owner calls Oliver. Elizabeth is charmed by the beauty of the house. Huge glass windows, coziness and comfort. At the entrance she sees wonderful flowers, white orchids and lilies. Oliver is blind. Evening dinner, luxurious table, well-dressed servants, and a night of love. In the morning, husband leads young wife around house, shows her expensive furnishings, paintings, precious works of art. Here is a luxurious wardrobe that contains fashionable outfits for a girl. Wonderful kitchen. One room is more beautiful than the other, and all doors have biometric locks. In one of the corridors, Elizabeth sees a door made of frosted glass and asks Henry what is located there. And the husband says that it is precisely there that the wife should not go. The girl objects she won't be able to do it because there are locks everywhere, to which Henry says that all biometric scanners are set to the parameters of two people, her and Henry himself. The next morning Henry leaves. Elizabeth is sad because it's their honeymoon. She swims in the pool and circles the house again. Elizabeth asks Claire why he married such a simpleton like her. Elizabeth. The woman does not answer this question. The girl spends the day reading, trying on outfits and jewelry, and dancing in front of the mirror. And in the evening she sees Claire and Oliver leaving the house. At night, the girl suffers from insomnia. She departs the room and wanders around the house, not even noticing how she arrives at the concealed room. Curiosity overcomes common sense, and Elizabeth enters inside. There is a room behind the door that resembles a laboratory. Sensors and devices are everywhere. Elizabeth presses button, and suddenly door opens. Glass capsule rolls out. Inside lies body of young woman with tube in mouth. It seems that she is sleeping. Scared, Elizabeth starts running, knocks over a table and injures her finger with a shard of glass. Henry arrives in the morning. He plays for Elizabeth on the piano. Indeed, he quickly notices that the girl's thoughts are floating in the clouds. Henry sees a bandaged finger and asks what happened. Elizabeth justifies herself. She is very clumsy. The husband calmly objects. She lies so well, it is even scary. Elizabeth is hurt. The husband easily figured out her deception. At night, Elizabeth pretends to sleep. She hears Henry going into the forbidden room. She sneaks behind. Surprisingly, Henry appears from the dark. He accuses Elizabeth of disobedience. The girl tries to justify that she didn't see anything forbidden, but her husband explains that the fact of her disobedience is important. Scared, Elizabeth tries to run away, but everywhere she comes across closed doors. Henry relentlessly follows in her footsteps. He catches her on the stairs, grabs her by the leg and throws her down, and then hits her with an iron poker. In the next scene, Henry, Claire, and Oliver dig a grave on the lawn and lower Elizabeth's body into it. After the funeral, everyone sits at the table. Claire asks to say that it's all over, but Henry says it's not the end yet. 6 weeks later, Henry brings a double of Elizabeth into the house. The same conversations, the same actions. And again Henry asks not to enter the forbidden room. Elizabeth promises to fulfill her husband's request. They love each other again, and Claire watches them from the darkness. Elizabeth can't sleep at night. She walks around the house and finds Claire sitting in the kitchen. Elizabeth is talking to a woman. She is curious about everything, as if one question arises in her head after another. Claire warns Elizabeth, but Henry comes in and leads his wife to the bedroom. In the morning, Henry leaves and asks his wife to be a good girl. Elizabeth walks around the house. She makes phone calls to Claire or Oliver but receives no response. The woman is feeling bored, and once more, fitting clothes, jewelry, night swimming in the pool, and a grand piano in the living room. And the room is magnetic. Elizabeth enters the forbidden room and screams as she runs out of it. At night, a woman has a nightmare that a girl from a glass booth, like her, came out of her sarcophagus and entered her room. Henry arrives at the same time. His wife is scared. Elizabeth goes to the bathroom, but Henry realizes that she also disobeyed him. A man bursts in on her, grabs her and starts choking her, but she kicks him in the face and runs away. Henry pursues her in the house. In the kitchen, Elizabeth arms herself with knives, while Henry wields an ether-soaked tampon. He sits down at the piano and starts playing. Elizabeth is relaxing. She hears the enemy, but it's a trick. The record is playing, and Henry sneaks to the place where Elizabeth is hiding. He grabs a woman and applies a tampon to her face. It seems that the game is lost, but with her last move, Elizabeth stabs him with a knife. The couple is on the floor in a pool of blood. Elizabeth wakes up. Henry is no longer alive. Then Elizabeth cleans the blood off the floor and tidies up the kitchen. She wraps Henry's body in cloth and loads it into the elevator, then washes herself, throws away the wedding ring, and burns the blood-stained clothes. A woman calls the rescue service, but she doesn't know her address, and at that moment, Elizabeth sees Claire and Oliver and pretends that everything is fine. Seeing Elizabeth alive and unharmed, the couple is shocked, and the girl says that Henry is resting upstairs. Claire goes to the kitchen and suddenly falls. This is a heart attack. She reaches for the phone and calls the emergency service. The ambulance takes Claire. Elizabeth is attempting to depart, but Oliver states he cannot safeguard her if she exits through the door. He understands that Henry is dead. Scared, Elizabeth tries to justify herself because it was self-defense. Oliver calms the girl. He himself hated Henry and will help get rid of his body. The guy asks what she remembers from her childhood. She says that she spent a long time in the hospital. Her parents died in a car accident, and she grew up in an orphanage, to which Oliver shows her a house nearby and says that it was exactly there. They grew up together. Claire knows about it, because she was the one who worked with her. Elizabeth is interested. Who is she? Oliver reports. She is one of Henry's 6 wife clones, number 5. The girl is in shock. Elizabeth is having a real hysterics. She wants to go back to the honeymoon. Oliver advises Elizabeth to leave here as far as possible. Money can be taken in the safe. The girl is heading to her room. She is packing her belongings. Oliver enters with Claire's diary in his hands. He asks him to read it, and while the girl tries to decipher the handwriting, Oliver locks the doors. Elizabeth does not understand what is happening. She asks to let her go, but Oliver is adamant. Out of despair, Elizabeth starts reading Claire's diary. She learns that Claire received an invitation from Henry to work with him, because she was a prominent geneticist. Arriving at the scientist's house, she meets Oliver, but when she finds out what he will be doing, she gets scared because she finds herself in the middle of a tragic love story. Unexplainable, unpleasant, and impossible. Henry mentioned his wife passed away shortly after Oliver's birth due to an extremely rare disease. Her genes suddenly and sharply degenerated. The grief-stricken husband cloned her cells and recreated 6 copies, but the disease manifested in them as well. To save time, Henry built cryogenic chambers and put bodies in suspended animation there. By the time Claire joined the project, there were only 4 of them left. She starts working and decrypts the disease gene. At this time, Henry records a message and plays music to the subjects. He hopes that this will shape their memory, but another Elizabeth remembers nothing more than a few seconds, and she suffers from it, because she has no real inner world. The constant tension of consciousness becomes too complex for her body. Once she entered the laboratory and ran away in horror. She was found by police, taken to Henry's house, where Claire recognized her as her sick niece. The strange accusation of the girl was attributed to a mental disorder. Distracts Oliver's arrival. He brought dinner and asks her to behave well, but Elizabeth attacks him. She wants to name the cat by door. Oliver calls. The girl goes to lab. And there he sees Oliver again, who is processing the body of another, 6th Elizabeth. He requests head support. While the 5th copy supports its clone's head, Oliver administers a sleeping pill injection to her. Elizabeth sees memories of her predecessors in delirium and wakes up in a room chained to the bed. She can't get free, and she continues reading Claire's diary. The woman remembers how they continued the research, but a week later, the clone died. Claire realized that neurodegeneration had resumed. She couldn't handle it. Henry is desperate. He will not be able to succeed. He wasted a lot of years in vain and behaved like a madman. But Claire objects, just like a lover. Relationships start to develop between them. Oliver enters the room once again. What Claire is writing about him. Elizabeth says that Claire started a relationship with Henry after the death of the third subject. The woman was unaware that Henry had altered the samples, indicating that Claire's errors were absent. She still managed to stop the disease, and the remaining clowns are healthy. Oliver tells that in childhood he admired Elizabeth because she was the most beautiful creature he had ever seen. Yes, then he was able to see. The children became friends, which Henry did not really like. Once Oliver witnessed Henry kissing a girl. That evening, the man blinded Oliver. After having said all this, the guy departed, and Elizabeth carried on with her reading. Claire wrote she ended the relationship herself, as it's impossible to compete with Elizabeth. Also, Henry talked about his pain after losing his beloved, and now he dreams of experiencing his first wedding night. Clara did not find any records that Elizabeth gave birth, and realized that Oliver is not Henry's son, it is Henry himself, and he made him because that Elizabeth wouldn't want him today. In the morning, Elizabeth wakes up from the touch of scissors on her neck. Oliver demands to be told what Claire wrote about him in her diary, and Elizabeth confesses that Claire considered him a clone of Henry himself. However, that is not true. Henry presented his birth certificate, therefore Oliver is not Henry. Elizabeth asks if he loves her and offers him to touch her. The girl takes off her pants and calls the guy. Oliver can't resist the temptation and approaches. He hugs Elizabeth, but the girl throws him down and strangles him with a chain. I have to give away the keys to the attacks and name the real cat from the door. But then Elizabeth enters the room. She aims with a rifle. Girls gaze at each other. They're identical. Oliver tries to persuade the new Elizabeth that she's ill in the room, an imposter, and their foe. Fifth Elizabeth argues it's false, they're hostages, and she simply wants to depart. Having listened to Oliver, the sixth Elizabeth orders another one to lie down on the floor, but the fifth Elizabeth hides behind Oliver, and when the sixth one finally shoots, the bullet kills Oliver and injures the fifth clone. She is attempting to escape, while the sixth clone is sobbing over Oliver. Injured Elizabeth departs from the house, leaving it behind. In her mind, all the visions and images that passed in front of her duplicates are blended together. A shot is heard. This is the last clone Elizabeth kills her double. The last breath and the last vision. It is she herself, leaning towards her face. In the morning, the last clone reads Claire's diary. Henry transfers all his property and belongings to Claire. Now she is able to continue the research. The man states that he did not intend to kill the person he desired to bring back to life for his entire existence. So it occurred. She passed away, and now she brings him happiness by dying repeatedly and repeatedly. And no one needs to know about it. These versions are not his Elizabeth. Only by destroying them does he feel that they are real. And Henry will do everything possible to put an end to it. Elizabeth finishes reading. She observes a cab arriving at the residence, from which Claire emerges. They meet at the door of the house. Elizabeth gives all to Claire, as she deserves it. Elizabeth walks on the road, leaving behind the scary, incomprehensible things. All her life she dreamed of a wonderful man. She stole his heart, and he stole her from all troubles into his secret world. But she no longer sleeps. The film prompts a rethinking of many things, primarily ethical questions. Can a genuine scientist, dedicated to enhancing lives, utilize his discovery for personal motives, and clone a person without their consent? Is this not considered a criminal act? Even the greatest love cannot justify violence against a person. And how to set a barrier and protect a person from such a manifestation of passion?